Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My dear cadets of class 9, I welcome you all in my today's online class. Dear cadets, in this pandemic situation, I hope you are safe and sound at your sweet home with your parents, family members and relatives. My dear cadets, one request to you, if you feel any sorts of sick or illness, please report to the nearest CMS without any delay, and side by side inform your physical condition to the college authority detailed. Cadets, because of an unavoidable circumstances, I am unable to impart you lesson in classroom before you. So college authority has arranged online class for you. Now I am going to impart my lesson. My dear cadets, before starting lesson, there are some very important advice about the corona awareness. Dear cadets, reduce your risk of COVID-19 infection. Wash hands. Wash your hands with soap or use hand sanitizer. Number 2, follow the etiquette of cough or sneeze. When you cough or sneeze, cover your cough or sneeze with your sleeves or tissue. Dispose the tissue and wash hands afterwards. Third, maintain social distancing. Cadets, keep a distance of around 1 meter away from others in public. Finally, stay at home. Always stay home unless you have an important reasons to leave the house. My dear cadets, now introduction myself. I am Muhammad Ruhul Amin Mokhtar, Associate Professor, Department of Political Science, Judicial Cadet College, Judicial. My dear cadets, today's topic is organs of Bangladesh government. Dear cadets, now learning outcomes. End of the lesson, you will be able to explain the importance organ of the government. You will be able to explain the power and functions of the President and Prime Minister. You will be able to explain how the Parliament dominates over the administration. Finally, you will be able to describe the powers and jurisdictions of the Judiciary of Bangladesh. My dear cadets, now lesson introduction. In modern state system, the state serves its purpose through the government. The government is one of the fundamental elements of the state. Government has some organs in order to discharge different functions thereof. A government has 3 organs such as the executive, the legislature and the judiciary. These 3 departments necessarily exist in the state system because the 3 key tasks of the government are running the administration, making laws and establishing the justice. My dear cadets, now organs of the government. First one is the executive. The executive is the branch of government exercising authority in the holding responsibility for the governance of a state. The executive executes and enforces laws. The executive or the administration department consists of all administrative employees including the president, the cabinet, the government officials, the security, law and order maintaining agencies, the diplomats, the officers and chowkidar altogether. The smooth administrative system is a must for the internal peace, discipline and development of the country. Dear cadets, diplomats is the governmental high official, those who are responsible to maintaining the relation with the other countries, which is called the foreign affairs. The officers, those who are maintaining the foreign affairs relation and the activities with the different countries, they are called the diplomats. Second one is legislature. Dear cadets, a legislature is a deliberative assembly with the authority to make laws for a political entity such as a country or city. Legislatures form important parts of most of the governments in the separation of power model. Separation of power model means having judiciary, executive and the legislature separately and doing their own works independently of in a freedom mood or situation. Though they are independent, but all three departments, they have their own interpersonal connectivity or relation. They are often contrasted with the executive and judicial branches of the government. The members of the legislature are called legislator. In a democracy, legislators are most commonly and popularly elected, although indirect election and appointment by the executive are also used. Dear cadets, now judiciary. The judiciary, which is also known as the judicial system, judicature, judicial branch, judicative branch and court or judiciary system. The judiciary is the system of courts that interprets, explains and applies law in legal cases. The judiciary is the system of court that interprets, explain and applies, use the law in the name of the state. Dear cadets, now status of president. President is by status holds above all in the state. He is head of the state according to the constitution. He as head of the state takes precedence over all other persons in the state and exercises the powers and performs the duties conferred to and imposed on him by the constitution and by any other law. Dear cadets, now the power and functions of the president. First, powers relating to the appointment of the Prime Minister and administration. Dear cadets, the president shall appoint the leader of the party got majority in the election as the Prime Minister. The president appoints the Prime Minister, ministers, state minister, deputy minister, and distributes the portfolios. Portfolios means office of a ministry, or responsibility of a ministry is called portfolio, amongst them with the advice of the Prime Minister. The President also appoints the Attorney General of Bangladesh. Attorney General means the chief law officer of the government is called the Attorney General. Judges of the Supreme Court, the Chief Election Commissioner, the Comptroller and Auditor General, the Chairman and other members of the Public Service Commission, the Ambassador, Envoys and High Commissioners in exercise of his power. Ambassador, Envoys and High Commissioners, they are the officials of different embassies and high commissioners which are employed by the government. Now, the legislative power. Dear cadets, the president summon means call. The president summons the parliament. He addresses the parliament in the first session and at the commencement of the first session of each year. The parliament holds discussion on the president's speech. Occasionally, he sends messages to the parliament. He may adjourn and dissolve the parliament on the prime minister's advice. Creates now ordinance making power. At any time when the parliament is dissolved or is not in session, and if the president thinks that circumstances exist which require immediate necessary action, he may declare ordinance, means special order, and any ordinance so made shall, as from its promulgation, means declaration, has the like force of law as an act of the parliament. It creates now appointment of the Chief Justice and judicial power. The President appoints the Chief Justice of Supreme Court. He doesn't consult anybody for this. The other justices of the Supreme Court are also appointed by the President. Now, the prerogative of the mercy power. Prerogative of mercy power means having the absolute power to pardon any person who is by this time declared the sentence or jail. The President shall have the power to grant pardon, rebates and respites, and to remit, suspend or commute any sentence passed by any court. It means that if for any person is declared the punishment by the court, then President can reduce or completely pardon that punishment. This is called prerogative of mercy power. The President of Bangladesh exercises this power in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister. The financial power and functions. My dear cadets, there are two types of bill. One is money bill, another is ordinary bill. If the bill is related with any expenditure, this is called the money bill, and if the bill or proposal is not related with any expenditure, then it is called the general bill. No money bill or any bill which involve expenditure from public money shall be introduced into the parliament except on the recommendation of the President. The President has the power to authorize expenditure from the consolidated fund for supplementary or excess grant. That creates now the power relating to the defense power. The President is the supreme commander of the defense service of Bangladesh. He may take any defensive measure against any external aggression or internal disturbance. Now, the proclamation of emergency power of the President. Proclamation means declaration. Emergency power. If the President is satisfied that a grave emergency exists in which the security or economic life of Bangladesh or any part thereof is threatened by war or external aggression or internal disturbance, he may issue a proclamation of emergency, provided that such proclamation shall require for its validity the prior counter signature of the Prime Minister. But it creates now status of Prime Minister. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh is the head of the government in the parliament from government adopted by the constitution. She is the chief executive of the government. She is the leader of the parliament, chief of the cabinet, and appoints the council of ministers. The entire government machinery revolves around him or her. In the parliamentary form of government, the status of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh is very high. The Prime Minister is the mainstay of the cabinet. He or she holds a very prestigious position. As per the constitution, the Prime Minister remains accountable for his or her governance to the parliament. Dear cadets, now the power and functions of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister gives an effective lead to the entire system of administration, and all the important decisions are taken by him or her. All types of executive powers are conducted and regulated by the Prime Minister in the name of the President. The Prime Minister appoints the ministers and distributes offices among them in the discretion. All actions relating to justice, finance, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and administration of the government are conducted with the advice and views of Prime Minister. Now, it creates the legislative power. The Prime Minister plays a vital role to legislation. Legislation means making laws. He or she patronizes the ruling party in the parliament. The legislative actions of the parliament revolves around him or her. Now, the power of the Prime Minister in leading parliament. When it creates, the Prime Minister is the leader of the parliament, and he or she adopts an effective role for the successful and smooth management of the parliament. He or she leads to have confidence and cooperation of the opposition. The Prime Minister has to discharge many functions for the sake of interest of all members of the parliament. The President may summon, adjourn, and dissolve parliament with the written advice of the Prime Minister. Now, the financial power. The Prime Minister reserves an important authority in financial concern of the state. The Finance Minister prepares and presents an annual financial statement before the Parliament, popularly known as the budget, with the advice and directive of the Prime Minister. The financial policies of the Prime Minister reflect in the budget presented by the Finance Minister. The President grants the fund for meeting the administrative expenditure with the advice of the Prime Minister. Role of the Prime Minister as coordinator of government. The Prime Minister coordinates the government policies. Since the entire administrative machinery revolves around him, his or her leadership plays a vital role to coordinating executive actions of all ministers, offices, and directorates. He or she presides over the interministerial meetings. Now, the role of the Prime Minister as the principal spokesman of the nation. The Prime Minister acts as the spokesman of the nation. He or she introduces Bangladesh to the world and represents the country. He or she informs the nation of any national crisis. He or she issues a statement on behalf of the state. Now, the leader of the majority party. It declares the Prime Minister is the leader of the ruling party in a democratic system of government. He or she plays an important role in determining the party policy and implementing the functions within and outside parliaments as well. A prudent role of the Prime Minister as the leader of the party and the establishment of a cooperative relation with the opposition are very important in the practice. Thus, the Prime Minister plays a vital role in all the spheres of the administration. Now, the powers and functions of Jatiya Sangsad, I mean the Parliament. It creates the name of the legislature or legislative body of Bangladesh is the Jatiya Sangsad, I mean the Parliament. The Jatiya Sangsad is the predominant part of the legislature. Any law enacted by the Parliament is finally passed with the assent of the President. The legislature is an organ of the government. Different types of powers and functions of the Parliament. First one is the legislative power. The Parliament has the plenary power to make any new law and to repeal or modify the organs of Bangladesh government and the system of administrative or alter the existing laws. The Parliament by law can delegate the functions of making subordinate legislation to some other authority to legislate any law by laws, rules and regulations, provided that such delegation doesn't amount of delegation of essential legislative functions. The President has in exercise of the power to assent to the bill presented by the Parliament within 15 days of presentation of the bill to him. Now, power to formation of the government. It creates power to formation of the government. The Parliament plays an important role to form the government. The member who commands the support of the majority of the members of Parliament is appointed as the Prime Minister by the President, and he or she forms the cabinet. But if the Prime Minister ceases to retain support of the majority in Parliament, the government succumbs. Now, the financial power. The Parliament virtually keeps an eye on how and why the funds of the state would be spent. Neither money mill nor any bill involving expenditure from public fund can be introduced without the assent and jurisdiction of the Parliament. The Parliament has the right to impose tax and collect them same. The government presents a budget before the Parliament every fiscal year. In fine, the whole expenditure of the state or the government are made in the discretion of the parliament. Now the power to judicial affairs. Dear cadets, the parliament may impeach the president on a charge of violation of the constitution or of grave misconduct or on the ground of physical or mental incapability or incapacity. The parliament also, in exercise of the power, may impeach the speaker, deputy speaker and ombudsman where necessary. Dear cadets, the power to electoral affairs. The parliament is vested with the electoral power for different elections, including the parliamentary election, elections to appoint the president, the prime minister, speaker, the deputy speaker, the ombudsman, etc. The parliament also has the power to elect different committees for the parliament. Ombudsman means Naipal is a very important post. Though Bangladesh we don't have this post, but in different developed countries of the world they have this post, and this high official and in his office playing a very vital role maintaining or implementing the rule of law. Dear cadets, at the end of the lesson, we may come in conclusion that a government has three organs such as legislature, executive and judiciary. Legislature enacting laws, executive implementing the laws and judiciary explain the laws. Or have the president who is the head of the state, but he does everything by the advice of the prime minister, and prime minister is the head of the government and chief executive. My dear cadets, now question answer session. After finishing the lecture, if you have any question, you can write it in message box. Then I will give you answer in writing. Dear cadets, now home task. Prime Minister is the chief executive of the government. President does everything by the advice of the Prime Minister. Then why President is required? Put logics in favor of your idea. Dear cadets, your next lesson will be administrative system of Bangladesh. My dear cadets, assignment uploading and submission date. Assignment of today's class I will upload 16 July 2020, and from the uploading date you are to submit it within the 18 July 2020. You will get about long 2 days for submission of your assignment. Submission of assignment is must, because the number you will achieve, it will be counted as a result of your term and exam individually, and also the house points will be also calculated from the achieved or gathered mark from the assignment. My dear cadets, again corona awareness. Always try to be free from the risk of the COVID-19. Maintain social distancing. Avoid the touching nose, eyes and other limbs of the body. Stay home, stay safe. Maintain the etiquettes of sneeze or cough. When you sneeze or cough, use your elbow band and use the tissue. Stay home, stay safe. My dear cadets, convey my salam and gratitude to your parents. Stay home, stay fine. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.